Are we video or are we just audio?
We're doing both.
Both.
All right.
Yeah.
Glad I wore clothes. Unlike you didn't get dressed at all, man. You know.
I don't. This is more than I usually wear, to be
Oh, okay.
honest. But dude, let's save it. But I want to say this: we can talk about literally anything.
Sure.
If it's an uncomfortable area or like you don't want to get into it, just be like, you know what? Let's wait till after the show or something.
Okay.
You know what I
Fine.
mean? But I doubt that's gonna happen really. So let's just start.
Yeah.
Alrighty. What's going on, everybody? We got a super special guest, Bruce Forman, today on Houston Ensemble episode 24. So Bruce Forman was my teacher, my private lesson teacher at USC for like I want to say at least 2 years, right about I would say, yeah.
Probably.
And so it was one of those things where at first I really sucked and then like everyone that was good would study with Bruce, and then so I was like, shit, I need to practice so I can study with this guy. But of course I had amazing teachers before then, like Steve Travato, who I love to death, and of course Pat Kelly, who I love to death. So it's all love here. And so Bruce, welcome. What's going on?
Well, just hanging in here, trying to keep from going sane.
All right, just keep from going insane.
Very good.
And so I just want to let you know because we introduced ourselves a little bit. Chad and we're roommates, and also we started a band called Houston Ensemble here in Houston. And ever since starting this band, we've branched out and we've started so many other things. Like we have a homeless outreach program. Then we did the podcast. And I want to say with the podcast, one of our aims is to support musicians, support artists, because as we were talking with Corey Christiansen the other day, is like the world needs more art, love, and culture right now. It doesn't need more politicians or lawyers because we need that for healing right now. And
Yeah.
so, Bruce, can you talk a little bit about? First of all, let's just catch up. What have you been up to? How you've been handling yourself? What are some projects?
Well, wow. That's a big, wide swath. Just starting with what I've been doing, ever since the pandemic, which I call the Mandemic, because you see, I had always been living, I've been on the road and teaching and traveling and playing gigs. And so my wife, and, had the house to herself a lot of the time. And then as soon as March 13th happened last year, I moved in full time into our house. And so it's really been a bigger adjustment for her than me, so that's why I call it the Mandemic. And but we did 50 TV shows from the house at the beginning. We did a twice weekly TV show. It's called Grumps TV. It's on my YouTube channel.
Oh, wow.
Uh, as you knew, well, I'm a real I like community. I like hanging out with people. I like I was in the clubs. I was playing gigs almost every night, and the internet thing was just a means for me to reach to get people to come to my gigs. Kind of that's what I always looked at the internet until, of course, mid March of last year, and then I realized I had to move everything onto the internet, which meant get my YouTube game going. Which I started that TV show so I could entertain, and I had a twice weekly gig. My wife sings, so we did skits, comedy skits, and I played tunes and I wrote songs, and we did just kind of like a I Love Lucy, basically updated to 2020, and then also Facebook and Instagram, and I've been doing a daily. I call it the first course of the day. I come out to my shed and I just decide a tune, and I figure, how fast I got to play it to make a chorus fit in a minute. And then I play a minute and I post it on my Instagram account. So I have like 250 or 300 of those up now.
Whoa.
And and of course I post on Facebook. Again, I'm not a person. I have strong political views, but I don't like to share them in social media because I don't feel it's a good place to get substantive, productive discussion going. It just seems like an echo chamber, and too much trolling and cowardice. So I generally leave that sort of interaction to the community level, like you guys are doing, and I want to applaud those efforts because that's what makes the difference. And I don't know that we need less politicians and lawyers. We just need more enlightened ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't agree more that art is not only the question but the answer, in terms of both articulating where we are, but also shining the light into where we need to go.
Mm.
And I do also want to tell you guys about a podcast that I have been a part of we just had our 6th birthday. It's called Guitar Wank.
Yep.
And it's
cool.
myself and Scott Henderson and Troy McCubbin.
Oh.
And it's a weekly thing, so there's got to be 250 episodes now up of that on guitarwank.com, and you can find it on iTunes. We're probably everywhere you can find your podcast, you can find ours. So I want to welcome you guys to the podcast world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wish you nothing but success. If you figure out how to make money with it, let us know.
Okay, I will.
Hey, we're on the way. We're on the way there.
I might lie to throw you off because it's competition, but
Oh, yeah, I know. but being that we're going to give the money to a good cause, we can work together on this.
I agree. I don't know how much you remember about me, Bruce, because I know you've had so many students over the years, but I do remember our lessons pretty good. I remember USC pretty good. What happened was I was kind of glad to be out, to be honest. Not really because I didn't like USC, but mostly because I didn't vibe with LA too hard, if I'm being honest.
Uh-huh.
But what happened was over the years you put on your rose tinted glasses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then now I'm just like, well, what did I even complain about? Like, I was in a state of the art institution where I could have done anything I wanted to, really, if my attitude was right. And so, yeah. What do you remember? Anything that stands out?
First of all, I remember most all of it, and I remember you very well because you are a very memorable person. And I do believe that I said those exact words that you just said to you more than once.
Really?
Yeah, when you were complaining about whether you were vibing with the school or vibing with you with LA.
Yeah.
And believe me, I have as many issues with Los Angeles as you do, if not more, because I come from San Francisco, and San Francisco is it's like Boston and New York, cats and dogs. You know what I mean? We do not get along. We hate each other. So, but the truth is, I was just trying to point out to you then, and I'm glad you see it now, that there's a lot to offer. And really, just like the pandemic, it's our responsibility as humans and as artists to make the most out of what we get. It's like I'm a jazz musician. People give me changes to play on. I play on them. This pandemic is just a weird set of changes that I got to figure out how to play.
Oh yeah.
And LA, what I like. First of all, LA has so many people. If 5% of the people there are cool, right, that's more people than any other city in the world, practically. You know what I mean? So it's like finding your people. Now, what I remember most about you is first of all how talented you were. Second of all, how impatient you were to really get to where you wanted to go.
Yeah.
And you have that. There's like you come by it honestly. I think it's cultural even for you. There's a like a hard edge to you. You know what I mean? That is just there, and I never dealt with it as like positive or negative. It was just you. You know
Mm.
what I mean? I was trying to help you get to where you were going. I could see how I would really disagree with you in your characterization of yourself in your early years as not being able to play very well. You were always a great player. You were just very eclectic and playing really well in certain ways that didn't necessarily work in the community that you were working in at USC in the early days.
Yeah.
That's how I would characterize it. You were always a great player at that school, and to me, great playing isn't necessarily only technical. It's also about the fact of how much of your human spirit you can get through the instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
That's a big part of being a good player to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you've always been one who you're noticeable, remarkable, always, and a force to be reckoned with.
Thank you
So
so much.
I remember that about you. Um, I but mostly, I mean, look, you were a kid. I mean, I was a kid. If you don't think that, I mean, I'm an impatient adult. You can imagine how much I was at your age, at that age.
Right.
I would have been like the worst asshole student they ever had. They probably would have kicked me out because I was
Yeah.
just there. I knew what I wanted to do, and I
Yeah.
had to get there as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And if I perceived that anybody was just throwing bullshit in my direction, even
Yeah.
if it was for my own good,
Right.
I resisted. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the first time I've seen that because I was that, and I still am that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that those are things that we as, yeah, and I'm sure I mean, you're teaching now, right? I mean, it's
Not as much as I used to, because I just don't want to. Like, I'm busy enough. Like,
yeah.
I can't. It would just irritate me. I couldn't do it.
Okay. Well, I mean, um, if you want to learn to do something, you teach it. Because
Right.
Mm.
every
Yeah.
person provides. Not only are you there to help them, but they're there to help you really organize what you think about things and to strategize for the best way to create progress in that direction.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
the process of teaching, I never looked at it as teaching anyways. It was mentoring for me. It was just a matter of like, hey, you come in, you're
Yeah.
talented, I'm talented. I just have more experience than you. So I've got the benefit of the power here now,
Right.
but really we're here to learn together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was just a job, I would have shot myself like
Yeah.
decades ago.
Yeah.
But I
Mhm.
love music. I mean, now that the pandemic's happening and there are no gigs, I mean, I'm still shedding all day
Yeah.
and I'm still teaching, whenever people want to hang,
Yeah.
so that's just kind of that's what it means to me, and I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but
Yeah.
that's what it means to me. But with you, I mean, always knew that you were going to be fine because you were on your path. I always thought of like, I want to help him out. I want to give him the benefit of my experience. I also, most of all, don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Don't get in the way. Don't make it a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bruce, are you in LA right now?
No, I'm
What?
in a place called Carmel Valley, which is near Monterey. It's
Oh,
central coastal California. I live on like a 2-acre plot of land out in kind of the woods,
oh
Mm.
wow.
and it's close to the beach.
Sweet.
And yeah, this we've had this house for a long time. Back when I was kind of training horses, this is kind of a rural area. Now it's mostly wine growing, but
Wow. Pardon me for my lack of research. You are not, or you are still teaching at USC right now?
I am technically, yes, still teaching at USC. Of course, it's all remote now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It's all remote at USC.
Yes, it's all remote right now. LA is, yeah, definitely in no position to start opening up schools and stuff at the
Okay.
point of the pandemic. Yeah.
It's so different down here in Houston.
Yeah.
comparatively speaking about gigs and stuff, you said like there are no gigs, whereas actually here in Houston, and Armin and I are still almost playing every night,
Oh, that's great.
which is actually, I mean, we love it, and we're, if people are doing what they need to do properly, then I think we're good for it.
Right. Well, the proof in the pudding is like we really want to get past this, and if people are doing things that are slowing down the eventual opening up for everybody, then it's a drag. I mean,
Yeah,
we have a responsibility to each other, and I'm not a scientist, but damn, I don't want to get this thing, especially I'm getting older now. I don't need to, I don't need to get a ticket out of this place just because I've got to play in some crowded club. And
yeah,
Mhm.
like,
yeah, totally. I mean, I
so
think
I
in
mean,
one,
yeah, I know that each, and again, the fact that this health issue is remotely political at all in
yeah,
our society is just a condemnation of it.
and it's
I mean,
hard when you're in our position, for example, when you were relying on playing every day as your, the thing to pay the bills, and then that stops, and then you're still at this kind of stuck place where maybe you don't want to go out and play necessarily, but you're kind of forced to solely because you're not getting any support in another way.
exactly, and,
And
and
like,
you hit it on the head. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, I make them or had made the majority of my income from playing.
hmm,
For all my, I mean, I'm only part time at USC. I teach private lessons. I'm like kind of an artist in residence sort of position. I'm not really a teacher there.
Mm.
So, I mean, I feel it. It's just like, yeah, all of a sudden, all my tours are gone. It's like a huge chunk of my support, financial,
yeah,
has been taken away from me by this, and that's further kind of underlines my impatience with like, let's just take care of this and get past it. Let's get rid of the politics. Let's go to medicine and science and fix everything and move on. You know what I mean? And not do these little half-ass things that just seem to drag it on. I mean, when I started Grumps TV right at the beginning of all this, I thought it would be like 6 episodes and I'd be back to work. I really thought in March, like by mid-April, everything would be cool.
yeah.
I really did.
By Easter.
Yeah, and I mean, it just, and then when I got to 50 shows, I said, enough of this shit. I mean, the Facebook, I was on Facebook Live, even though I was recording it and putting it on YouTube. Facebook Live kept crashing all the time because Mark Zuckerberg really didn't like people using it as a TV station.
Right.
The
Yeah.
whole idea of Facebook was to get more money for him, not to really
Right.
help us do things. And so, I mean, the frustration of I'm not the most tech savvy dude, and the frustration of trying to be a tech director of a TV show while I'm the writer and talent, it just got like after 50 episodes, I say, okay, I got 50 episodes. But meanwhile, who'd have thought that 100 more was more likely than five?
Yeah.
With just the trajectory of the virus, and I just wish again back to what you guys are talking about: less politics, more art. I mean,
Yep.
our health shouldn't be a political issue. Our sustenance of life, be able to live, shouldn't be a political issue. It's like, what has that got to do with politics? You know what I mean? These are moral issues.
Yeah. Well, especially right now, it's just money at this point. There's so much money to be made, whether it's,
Yeah.
who's gonna make the best vaccine and distribute that to everybody with all the different makers or something like that, or
Who's going to just get the most commercials telling people to take it or not? That's
yeah,
really what
that
it comes
too.
down to. You know what I mean?
I got a question for you.
Sure.
I love your hat.
Ah,
Uh, can you talk about it for a second?
sure. But first, pardon me for my bad manners. Chad, what music? I haven't done any research on you. Tell me about yourself musically. I
Cool,
don't.
yeah. I play bass, so I play upright bass and electric bass,
Uh,
and I just graduated in May from Rice University down here in Houston,
uh,
the Shepherd School of Music, and I did all classical. Um, from high school, I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, and went to a performing arts high school down there, which was really cool. And we had all these amazing people come through master classes all the time, like Chick Corea, Branford Marsalis, Benny Golson, Antonio Sanchez, Carl Allen, bunch more. So I was kind of getting steeped into it a little bit in high school, the jazz realm, but I was still very serious about classical. Decided to go to Rice because I wanted to be in an orchestra, and Rice is known for, having the best numbers for placing people in orchestras. But once I got to Rice and was doing it, I started going to a bunch of jam sessions here in Houston. Then I studied in Amsterdam at the conservatory there and got even more exposed and saw every single amazing musician that ever came through there. And then I did my auditions this past year and was actually potentially going to attend USC or Miami U or Manhattan. And it turned out to be Manhattan. But I ended up deferring because that's really when the virus hit, and I didn't feel comfortable dishing out so much money for what I was going to be getting and living in that city. So I've since stayed here, and Armin and I eventually moved into this house, and we've really just been putting in the work here, and I'm having a great time.
Cool.
So
Great. Well, it's good to meet you. I'm looking forward to hearing you.
Yeah, and I got to watch a really wonderful video of you playing a duo yesterday with, I don't know her name, but she was playing bass and singing.
Oh, probably Kristen Korb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
I've heard Armin mention you plenty of times. It's just I haven't gotten to super look up everything, but I loved what I saw yesterday, so it was really inspiring.
Well, there's a lot more there, man. So just,
I'm excited for this Grumps TV.
Enjoy yourselves. There's a lot of different stuff too, man. A lot of different stuff. There's a band I have called Cowbop, which brings us back to the hat a little bit. But we played in Texas a lot. Played the Continental Club in Houston. And stuff.
Cool.
Anyways, but
I've told him about Cowbop. He's heard it.
Yeah. And so, but back to the hat. First of all, I grew up in Texas myself, northern to Dallas, Dallas area, and rode horses as a kid. Always dug that, and when I and of course found the bebop horse and rode that for the most of my life, and then I was the All-Star Monterey Jazz Festival. I was in the house band. We'd back up all the artists, like they'd bring out Dizzy or Clark Terry and people, and we were the house band. It started with me and Hank Jones and Shelly Manne,
oh wow,
and Andy Simpkins, but for years different guys played in it. And we would be like the house band, like Stan Getz, or a lot of the guys they would bring to the Jazz Festival. They wouldn't bring the band; they just bring the leader for kind of jam session-y shows. Mm-hmm. And so I got to do that. And so I was here, and then they also had an education program where we'd go to the schools and show them what jazz was and play with the jazz bands and stuff. And being down here, there was actually some space, unlike my hometown of San Francisco once I left Texas, where there were horses and stuff and horse ranches. Like out here in Carmel Valley, before the vineyards all took over, it was a lot of horse ranches. So I would ride horses. And so I'm a cowboy too, along with being a jazz musician. So a hat thing is, I'm a white person and I'm out in the sun a lot.
Yeah.
And the sun is not good on us. Okay. I mean, if you're young, so I'm going to tell you right now, the sun is not your friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a hat became just sort of part of my feeling dressed.
Cool.
Yeah,
I love it.
And then if you're a cowboy, you kind of find your style, whether it's like the roll up or the big top. You kind of what makes you feel better when the face shape and all that shit. What the girls like and all that kind of stuff. And then. But this particular, I've kind of gravitated more towards this is an Australian style hat, really. It's not really a cowboy hat. And I like these better. They're a little less big hat kind of, all hat, no cattle. I don't like that vibe. You know what I mean?
All hat, no cattle.
I've got this little hat, and the feathers in it are turkey feathers, and that's the war I have with wild turkeys on my property because my wife has a food garden that we eat out of, and the turkeys,
Oh wow.
they don't really eat the food, but they get in and they dig around for the grubs and the dirt and stuff, and really mess up the garden. So I'm kind of trying to discourage them without hunting exactly, more like being a nuisance. And we're kind of at war, and these are some representations of things that they've had to leave behind when they had to leave quickly.
That's cool. You know, I was out in Sedona, Arizona recently,
Uh-huh.
and we went horseback riding in the mountains.
Uh-huh.
And I love horses as well. I haven't been horseback riding in a long time, but getting out there and riding just on that beautiful terrain
Yeah.
was inspiring and a memory for me as to wow, I need to get back to something like this.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of our personal like issues, societal issues, that we talk about, whether like even political, I think they have to do with the thing I called NDD, which is nature deficit disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I just think,
yeah.
you're putting your feet in the sand at the beach or walking by yourself on a dirt road or being on top of a horse out alone somewhere, um, canoeing down a river, uh, you know, walking your dog, I mean, this kind of thing, I think a lot of the stress people are going through, a lot of the health issues they're having, and a lot of the tribal political bullshit would just go away if people would just kind of get a little more in tune with nature.
Yeah.
A little
Another
less cement, a little more dirt.
and another thing that you mentioned earlier, it's not exactly similar. It's similar, but when you said this tribal kind of stuff and not being able to communicate over social media, what we're always realizing, and I'm sure you realize this as well, is the whole game changes when you're actually having a face-to-face conversation with somebody and you're actually in their presence and in their energy. And because on Facebook everything is so disconnected and it's just some sort of little debate where who can get the next best line, but when you actually bring people together in person, even if they're wildly opposing in their viewpoints, you can just feel you can still feel the humanity in the other person, and I think that makes everybody a little more empathetic to each other. And I know that we're missing that right now, especially with everybody staying home.
Amen. That's always been what I've believed. You know what I mean? And it's like if you want to have a conspiracy theory, you could say the conspiracy is that the world is trying to conspire us to go to the computer so that they can keep us apart so they can sell us shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is what it is.
Yeah, and I
That's not a
mean,
conspiracy theory. That's where we're headed.
yeah, and they even, just the a bunch of stuff comes out about Facebook and Instagram and stuff and all the catering to your specific interests and all that kind of stuff, and then actually it's a sort of predictive programming where they can kind of finagle you into doing what they even want you to do. So
Right.
it's
They don't want us hanging out together, man. They don't want us hanging out together.
no,
Yeah.
I mean, those people, I mean, because that's the biggest threat to their business model.
totally.
But even Zoom, I mean, is it's way better than, of course, what we call social media, like Facebook
Yeah,
and Instagram, because at least we're talking to each other and we can see each other's facial expressions.
yeah,
And, I can get an idea when you're bored or when you're pissed off or if I've gone too far. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for this, much of it, to be honest.
yeah, same.
The irony is that with something like Zoom, which has already been outed and implicated in so many surveillance issues,
Right.
it's like, man, it's like obviously we're gonna use it because we're gonna want to talk to each other, so we're gonna use it.
Right.
Yeah,
But it's a double-edged sword because, well, do you want to have a private conversation or do you want to be like, at any point, me using this program, I'm not having a private conversation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I mean, really, I'm not basically. I'll be honest with you. I don't. I have no my whole life, and I have foot and mouth disease. You know that, Armin. I mean,
Yeah.
if there's a joke to be made, I'm gonna make it.
Well,
You
yeah,
know
me,
what I
me,
mean?
me too. Yeah.
But the truth is I never say anything or write anything down in
Right.
in on any electronic device
Right.
that I don't want to be on the front page of the LA Times.
Yeah, you're an open book. I got you.
And that's, I mean, so that way I don't care if they watch. I mean, I hope they're all watching us right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Take a hint from you. Speaking of scary whatevers, Bruce, can I tell you a crazy story that happened last night and get your opinion on it?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Maybe you like this because you're about nature and you're probably outside a lot. Okay.
This is wild.
So, this happened last night. I was outside with my girlfriend and her friend, and it's probably 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And we're just having a great night after the gig. And we're all outside, and it's a full moon, or it's just starting to wane back down, whatever you call it. And we're all looking at the moon, and then we realize that it's very hard to describe, but kind of like it's not all together. It's like there's a little bit of the front face, which is kind of not attached fully, and then there's kind of a middle part, and it seems like it's moving and kind of morphing into it. Okay, maybe that's just a light thing. Maybe that's how our eyes are perceiving it. But then on further inspection, my friend, she says it looks like a red star has just traveled into the moon. And I didn't see that part, but then I'm looking at it more and we're all focusing on it. And there is actually a large red halo or red energy field around the moon. But then on top of that, there's an extremely big blue energy field. And it actually looks like some sort of holographic blue image behind the moon. And it's morphing and it's coming out. But then we continue to look at it and we notice that it appears that the moon is moving down and moving right and moving left and up and down, and it's not staying static at all. It will stay static for a moment, and we tested it. I was looking at it, and I'm calling out the directions. Like, I'm calling out cardinal directions. It's moving northeast. It's moving southwest. And every time I called it out, my girlfriend and her friend said, yes, it's exactly moving. It's like somebody took a cursor and was pulling the moon around in the sky. And so we all confirmed that it was moving in those directions. And then on top of that, we were all looking at the shadows on the moon, and we could see them moving on the face of it. Now, I've never seen that in my whole life, and maybe you're thinking I'm super weird right now, but
Well, there's numerous. I'm not an astronomer nor a scientist of that nature. The first thought would be like, boy, you guys were on some cool shit. You know what I mean? That's like, but the second thought would be like there's possibly an atmospheric thing that was happening around you that was creating that.
right.
There is possibility, of various things of that nature that could have affected it. And I'm sure that if you talk to somebody who's, I don't know if an astronomer is exactly the one you want to talk to, but maybe somebody like that, an Earth,
It was unnerving.
I mean, that's cool. I'm glad you experienced that, and I'm glad you experienced it with somebody else, because that could really make you paranoid if you were the only one to see it.
Yeah, it was. I've never seen anything like it. It looked extremely unnatural, and yeah, it could be an atmospheric thing or something like that. As Armin said, I should have videoed it.
And there's a lot of oil refineries there. You know what I mean?
I was so pissed that none of them videoed it.
Yeah.
All three of them could have had footage.
A video of it would really not be very good because
it was so dark, right?
Handheld, that would be moving by itself. You would have to be like a stationary video.
That's exactly what I said.
With a grid on it,
Yep.
There would be so much setting up of that.
Yeah.
But it would be a good idea to set that up, in the future when the moon is getting full,
Right.
Well, I'm gonna go out again tonight and observe again.
See if it repeats.
See if it's the same thing.
regarding the atmospheric thing, if I was like an editor of Skeptics magazine, I would be like, there's pounds of crystallized vapor in the air, and on a full moon when it's the brightest and reflecting the most amount of sun, it's going to interact with these crystalline structures in the air. If it's a cloudy night, if it's a precipitous or humid night, you're going to have the most amount of light interference. At uncertain points, depending on where the clouds are, the moon might look as if it's shifting to this corner and doing this little thing, because it's like an optical illusion.
Right. And same
Yeah.
shadow. The same thing. It's the same explanation pretty much for the shadows you saw too.
That being said, if you're starting to see dancing ambient lights and things moving into it and shit like that, then I don't know what the hell that is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right. I mean, but again, you can look it up, and
I did look it up. I did look it up this morning to see if anybody else has seen that same thing, and I found an interesting answer on Quora. And no, I'm not going to give it too much credence because I can't verify this guy at all. But he described the exact same movements that I was talking about. And he ended up saying that he works in quantum field testing and that the moon is basically a hologram.
That's
okay. Well, so am I. So you know what I mean.
Right. So it doesn't matter too much, but
yeah.
Let me just say that was a momentous time of my life last night.
Well, then I'm glad you get to share it with other people, and if you repeat the same mixture of substances, maybe you'll get it again.
You got it.
Yeah, we gotta go out tonight.
Yeah.
And I'll let me see what kind of tangent we can go on, because we can go deep into this rabbit hole, or we can get back into music.
I think we've done this. I feel like I've kind of gone beyond my pay grade already. On
really? The atmospheric stuff. Yeah. I guess I wish the audience would know a little more if you could take the time to kind of talk about some wild gigs maybe you had, because I know you've had plenty.
Oh yeah, I've had lots of wild gigs. They're all wild in one way or another, though, aren't they?
Yeah. Are there any wild Scott Henderson stories maybe you want?
Well, no, I just hang out with Scott. Kind of the wild part of Scott is like the Scott that I know. He's a funny guy that I hang out with. Like nobody in LA really could understand why we were like the odd couple. Why are Bruce and Scott best friends? It's like Scott's this weird loner guy who plays fusion, and Bruce is this bebopper guy who, the only pedals he uses are the gas and the brake in his car.
Right.
And so, but Scott's a swinging, burning player, and we just love each other, and I love his playing, and I don't know, he'll have to tell you whether he can tolerate mine or not, but and we would just get together and have breakfast once a week, and that just sort of started a big, kind of bromance of sorts, and then Troy came by and heard us, actually came to breakfast with us once. And he says, man, this has to be a radio show. And that's how the podcast was born. And actually, I do believe that just recently, one of the most recent ones was he released some bootleg tapes from us in that restaurant talking.
Oh, that's cool.
Like from before the show even started, he surreptitiously recorded us while we were talking at breakfast, just complaining and ranting, which is what we pretty much do all the time. In terms of when you go out and play crazy gigs, you're on the road all the time, and you get thrown in weird places. I don't need to tell you guys, you're doing it now, you just deal with what you get and try to make the most out of it. It's really the most jazz experience there is. You just improvise, and sometimes it's pressure from the audience. Sometimes it's pressure from the management. Sometimes it's pressure from the road, just, logistically getting to the club that makes it weird. Sometimes it's people who are actually crazy in the band that makes it weird.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's technical problems, like instruments go out. I mean, I did this one concert in Italy all on the piano because the amplifier they brought didn't work, and my guitar wasn't loud. I mean, there was like 1,000 people there,
Yeah.
and my guitar wasn't loud enough
Wow.
for anything, and I couldn't plug into the for some reason into the PA. They,
Wow.
they they didn't. I mean, like I needed a XLR, and all I had was a quarter-inch jack, right? So there was a piano there, so I just played piano trio for the concert.
Wow. That's legendary.
But you got to do something. And I
Yeah.
think I told, I think I told some poems, and and maybe sang a few stupid songs. You know what I mean? Told some jokes. You know what I mean?
Wow. I couldn't imagine. I don't know. I probably would have fucking left at that point. You
Well,
know.
I wasn't going to give up.
Yeah.
That's not. I don't think you would have either. I think you'd have
Yeah.
figured
He
something
would.
out.
Yeah.
And at one point, I did take my guitar and I just walked through the audience.
Oh, okay.
And so people that were close enough to me could hear me. So I
Right.
kind
Wow.
of did a walk the bar. I walked all the way
Right.
through the audience. So like for that 5 minute period, people could hear me for maybe 30 seconds of it.
I got you.
That's cool. Can you tell us maybe one of your most memorable or maybe an experience that had a really big impact on you,
Oh
music wise?
shit! There's
Whatever,
so
free association, whatever hits your mind first.
okay, quick. One was like I grew up in San Francisco. San Francisco was a really hotbed of jazz during my years of my late teen years and early 20s. There was a club called Keystone Corner. They had bands 6 nights a week, and it was like the best of jazz. It was like Rahsaan Roland Kirk, McCoy Tyner, Bill Evans, Oscar Peterson, George
Oh.
Benson, Grover Washington, Freddie Hubbard, and in town, Joe Henderson lived in town, Bobby Hutcherson lived in town,
Oh.
Woody Shaw lived in town.
Oh.
And Bobby's band played that club a lot. Like maybe every 2 months they'd do a week. I mean, they were just like kind of almost the house band. And I heard that band, and I'm a huge Bobby Hutcherson fan. And of course, I learned all their music and stuff. And and my dream was to play with him. And one day he asked me, he says, "Hey man, I want to do this thing with guitar. I don't want to do piano this week. Can you do it?" And I said, so here I am, this probably 20 years old, 21. And we go to play, and from the first note, it shocked me how much different it felt being on the bandstand playing with them than it did out listening to them and
Mhm.
studying them.
Right.
Just there was a thing about being inside the groove versus listen to the groove,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
it further cemented to me the importance of I have to play with all these people.
Yeah.
Mm.
I have to play with them. I mean, there are things I'm getting lots just by listening and studying and enjoying. But there's this being part of it and being committed to it and being integral to the whole gumbo of swing or whatever rhythm of sound that really got me. Another one was I was on tour in Italy with it was Jack McDuff actually was the leader, but it was me and him and Jimmy Cobb, the drummer who was Miles Davis, a
We
million
know.
but kind of flew,
Yeah.
That's sweet.
and so we were on the road, and one night we played some little outdoor festival or whatever, and I speak Italian, so I'm like hanging out with people and hitting on chicks and stuff and drinking at the bar. I'm having a good time. Jimmy's like, by
Damn.
that time, he's probably in his late 70s, I guess,
Oh,
mid
wow.
70s. I don't know. And the gig's over. It's time to go, but I'm hanging at the bar, and we had a Fender Twin we were using, and for me that they were taking around, and Jimmy comes up to me and says, "Hey man, we got to go now." I said, "Okay," and I said, "Wait a sec, I got to go get the amp, because I don't need to tell you how heavy a Fender Twin is, but it's like it's a hernia maker, and so Jimmy says to me, no, he says, I already got it for you. I said, what? I said, I'm thinking, God damn. And he said to me, I swear it, he said, it's the least I can do for you holding this gig together the way you have been.
Oh, wow.
And, I could kind of tell that he wasn't really digging, like the organ, and particularly Macduff at that part of his life. The time moved, the organ, the time moves around a little. It's not it's not like having a bass player. It's not because the guy's playing bass and he's playing things and the sound is swelling. It doesn't have as much point to it, And so, and Jimmy, I mean, if you're aware of his playing, he's very quarter note centric, And so like, Jimmy just said, man, the way you're like setting the time gives me something to play with, and it's like, God, a compliment and a, him saying his gratitude, and he carried my amp. I mean, that kind of sticks out in my life as being a moment, worth remembering.
That's super cool.
I just remember being at the at Viva Cantina, and then sometimes Scott would show up.
Yeah.
And y'all would start whispering about some wild stuff. And then y'all would get a couple of drinks in you, and then the whispers turned into loud whispers. And we would just hear this like epic shit that I don't even know if you want to even mention.
Well, a lot of it's on Guitar Wank,
Okay. So what are some nasty ones that are already on Guitar Wank?
Nasty ones, like about people or about what?
I don't know. No, like some not drama per se, but like some wild stuff,
Well,
that your wife would be kind of pissed if you mentioned.
Oh man, she wouldn't be pissed. She'd be grateful she didn't have to be involved in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, things weird things you just do. I mean, I don't. I can't even remember that shit anymore. I'm just,
Okay.
but unless it comes up in conversation. But yeah, and we do rant a lot. And I have a problem with the guys who play jazz who, guitar players. Okay, this is one I rant about. Is like guitar players playing jazz. It's just too guitaristic. It's not musical. I mean, I call it major scales with bends. When I hear that over a standard, I like go, fuck, really? That's shitting on the jazz tradition, man. That's just a bunch of weekend rock warriors trying to play tunes. I'm sorry, man. If you're gonna play those songs, there's harmony and there's and play melodies. Don't play scales with bends.
Scales with bends, Jesus.
I mean, and there's a lot of that. There's a lot more of that than you think. And there's a lot of famous guitar players who do it. And it pisses me off, okay? Because it just shows a lack of understanding of how the music works, If they sound really great at it, then I give them a lot of kudos for that because it's really hard to make something like that sound great. And if they're moving the music forward by playing a little bit different repertoire, then that's cool. You know what I mean? If they play a repertoire that's well based, that suits that style of playing, great. But don't do that over Scrapple from the Apple or Honeysuckle Rose, man.
Who can you think of?
I'm not going to mention any names because, it's just, I mean, I don't, not that anybody really listens to either of our podcasts. No one would know that I said it, but,
Yet.
But I'm just saying, that guitar players that don't listen to the other players. That seems to be a guitaristic. I mean, I know there's musicians on every instrument that do that, but we as guitar players, I think, have a tendency to stare at the fingerboard and not hear what's going on around us as much sometimes.
I don't know if I should be saying this, but like, I'm not gonna mention where I saw this and why, who it was, and all that stuff. But I will say this: I was somewhere here in town after a gig, and we had a pretty good gig. It was with Chad, and then we went to another gig and heard some people sit in, you know,
Yeah.
and I heard a couple of fellow six string nerds,
Uh-huh.
and what I noticed is that, like, at a jam session, not everyone's gonna be amazing, right?
Right.
It's fine if, like, it's fine if you're a beginner or you're new into jazz.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. What matters is that, like, people can hear that you're really going for something, or you have something here that's powerful, that you're trying to communicate. Like, if it comes out weird, that's okay.
Yeah.
But what I noticed is that, and I'll just put it in a nice way, like, guitar is hard, right? So there's a lot of things you got to get out of the way, like, pretty quick, so you can get into the music part.
Exactly.
So, and what I was noticing is that the guitarists there were just, this is a lot to do with guitar education as well, but they were just still just confused by their instruments. You know what I mean?
Well,
And
yeah,
you know,
and yeah, I hear that a lot.
yeah, and, like, it's unfortunate because there's no tablature for saxophone players. Like, if you want to play saxophone, you got to at the very least learn the saxophone. You know what I mean? At least to an extent. And then you can start wiggling your fingers and going nuts. But with the guitar, it's like, just hold your fingers like this and you got a G chord. Boom. Look at that. And that does, if that can, like, cripple the progress of guitars, I think, big time.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of things there. First of all, I have far less problems with the guys who get up at jam sessions and are basically just confused or mystified or sabotaged by the guitar.
Hmm.
I have far more patience with them than the ones whose their playing is all about the guitar.
Right.
Those are the ones that drive me batshit, because it's like they play great, and yet their choice is to basically play the instrument and not the music.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's what it's about. And that to me is like a fundamental lapse in concept. And I agree with you. There are a lot of things about the guitar that make it the easiest instrument to play, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And those very same things make it the hardest instrument to play.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could get a Mickey Baker book and a fake and a real book, you know what I mean, and probably go out and work gigs.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know what the sound of a major chord or a minor chord is. As long as your guitar's kind of in tune, which you have a tuner now. It's like you can function just by being a data processor.
Mm-hmm.
Without having any ears at all or any understanding of how the music works. So that is a fundamental problem. The guitar ultimately is a very difficult instrument to play because of the silly way it's laid out.
Mm-hmm.
That we have 5 middle C's,
Mm-hmm.
which are actually the C below middle C, but they're written as middle C for us. And so now every, like the I guess it's like oh shit, I'm losing the word, but like when you're trying to relate to a word, like to a note, you have the piano, the distance is always the same. If I want a minor third, and you just go up, it's always you know what I mean? It's going to repeat itself on this long keyboard. If I want a minor third on the guitar, if I'm on my third finger, then I've got it here. But if I'm on my first finger, it's here. And all these things are just kind of, and then meanwhile, the right hand and the left hand have to work in perfect concert together. Whereas on the piano, you hit the note and you don't get a chip. Well, I can hit the note perfect. I have my left hand on that note perfectly, and my right hand will chip it, or my right hand will hit it perfectly in my left. And so it's like there's twice as many problems of execution.
Yeah.
But then again, if you want to treat it mathematically, you don't have to worry about transposing. Whereas on a piano, that becomes a whole different thing. So there's like the word I was trying to think of is like a gyroscope. In a weird way, the guitar is kind of like a gyro. It's got this very. It doesn't have forward and back. It's got forward, back, sideways, and all the angles. It's all just kind of moving at once, and it's
Yeah.
very. It can be very disorienting at
Mm-hmm.
times,
Bruce,
especially as if you try to play like I have been lately. Kind of like my focus has been over the last couple of years in particular, but really since the pandemic, is since I'm alone and I'm no longer we don't have gigs out here. Um, I've been really getting into playing solo, just by myself, because that's
Mm-hmm.
what I do all day, and I'm loving it, finding new things that I'd never found before. And my real inspiration musically right now, as much as Charlie Parker still is like the king of the world to me, is Art Tatum.
mm,
So I'm kind of like really trying to channel that approach to playing into my playing. And of course, I was doing that Red Guitar show, which we
Mm-hmm.
should talk about at some point. But that is a solo piece. So I was already headed in that direction. So I can almost say that maybe this pandemic was kind of a fortunate thing in some way that I could, you know, kind of hunker down in my studio and work on my own thing and not just be racing around playing gigs and record dates and,
Mm-hmm.
learning other people's music, just,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm trying to say like I'm making the most out of what happened, but
Yeah.
I'm also seeing the good side, in it.
Right.
yeah. I have a little question for you.
Sure.
You brought something up earlier. How do you think about time and developing better time?
Uh, I think Armin and I have talked about this a lot. I'm of the viewpoint that we all need to develop better time. At that just when you're playing, that's what you're doing. And especially when you're playing with great players, that's
Yeah.
what you're really doing. But you're always developing your time. I think the real key to having good time in the first place and then getting better is to not worry about it.
Mm,
Because
Yeah.
I think there's a certain amount of confidence you have to have in your
yeah.
own time, and you
Yeah.
have to believe you've got good time, and then you play from there and you adjust to what happens around you, and that's what makes you better. But any sort of like I've got to work on my time puts a voice in your head that there's something wrong with your time, which ends up happening as tentativeness on in the music and on the band,
Mm,
and
Mm-hmm.
that makes the worst time of all.
Right.
yeah.
Far worse than slowing down, speeding up, or dropping beats is a tentative approach to where your feel is not just you can't even the people around you can't even get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the idea to me about working on time is just the life of playing music.
Yeah.
And but no matter what level you're at, whether you're playing your first day or your last, is to be 100% committed to the time you have with your ears open and working on it. Because if I'm playing by myself, it's my time.
Right.
But if I'm playing with one other person, it's our time, collectively two people. If it's a trio, then it's our time, three people. If I have
Right.
a whole room full of people clapping their hands and I'm playing with that, then
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole different kind of time. And it's my job to work within that, maybe help direct it by being strong, but
Yeah.
also by living in the moment and just, and that comes from not worrying about your time.
Yeah.
I feel like that is something that I've been noticing recently, and I just wanted to kind of gauge what you would say about it as a educator. Armin and I, as well as our other friend Corey, who plays saxophone, at the beginning of the pandemic, did this thing where we ended up going out into the park every day and just playing trio in the park.
Yeah.
And I was on upright bass and he's on guitar and sax, and we probably did that for maybe 2-ish months, even 3-ish maybe.
Yeah.
And when I finally came back after that and played with a drummer for like the first time, I was like, wow, I feel so different in my approach to the time. And that, for example, was something that really changed me, because in that setting of the trio, I was really the bedrock of the time. I mean, everybody was, but I have to lay it down the entire time. And Armin and Corey push me all the time. And so, but what I've also realized is that, like you said, not thinking about it and being confident in it seems to be very important as well, where if you were playing what you're playing and it wasn't time, why second guess it in the next measure and just why not keep going? And I feel like that's been a big thing for me.
Right, and everybody has to do what they believe, and I'm sure there was an adjustment. You're playing. I'm sure with Armin, were you playing acoustic or electric, Armin, in that gig outside?
I was plugged in electric to like a little.
But actually, both. We did
Yeah,
do
but
both.
when you play acoustic, you know how it is. You're really hitting the instrument hard.
Yeah.
And then when you go to play electric that first time after you've been doing that a while, it's like a weird, oh shit, the touch is different, and just like a bass player playing time for guys, it's a hard swing beat and he's playing, and then all of a sudden a drummer's there, you adjust because that's.
Yeah.
But every moment of your life is just this sort of experience that makes you better, and but you're only good to the band. You're only worth it to the band and to the audience if you're confident and playing with conviction.
Yeah.
And I mean, and you don't have to necessarily like this idea that we have to lock in. That's some music school ass idea. The reality is, have you heard Miles' band with Ron and Tony? Those guys rarely agreed on what shit was, but they were both strong about where they were, and it made this amazing groove.
That's a great point.
Yeah, so there's that like you said, music school thing. And what I learned over the years, and a lot of it was kind of like seeded in me with lessons with you, Bruce, is that like when we would talk about when you really introduced me, for example, to like really thinking about something as simple as, do I follow the soloist's time or do I follow the rhythm section's time?
Right.
And just the fact that you can make that choice in the music, and everyone can make a choice, and that could drastically change the vibe of what you're doing. And then that branched into, oh, what do I want my time to feel like? Should I be in the middle, in the back, in the front? And then after that morphed into, well, it just depends on where the music is going.
Right.
We're not supposed to stay in one place the whole time or whatever the fuck. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. No,
right.
If that were the case, just program us in a computer and there you go.
Right. Well, our heart doesn't beat the same rate all the time.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've noticed, but I mean, and I love playing with metronomes.
Yeah.
But like generally speaking, there's a slight, when you're coming off the climax of a solo into the next solo, there's a slight
ring of some sort.
The tempo generally dips a little bit right there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll notice it when you're playing with a metronome, if like you're really playing with the metronome, and then you take the solo and then you're ending your solo and you'll find that the metronome's just kind of getting ahead of you. It's natural because you want this energy to decompress. It's not like you want the music to slow down. You're talking about little nuance. It's really about where all of a sudden the click's a little further ahead in the beat than it was before. We're not talking about like you're 3 beats behind.
Right.
And this is natural human stuff, and it's another way that we communicate our feelings through music.
Yeah.
And so like if you want it perfect, we can program a computer to do it. That's not going to shit, man. They can, all the things we can do with a computer now, that would be like one of the easiest things in the world to do.
And this isn't really a new thing, but the other week I was watching this pop artist, Dua Lipa, and speaking of time, she did this thing in her song where it's got a full-on groove for a while, and then all of a sudden it kind of surprises you and it does this real quick slowdown, and then it pops right into the groove, and it's so subtle, but Armin and I both listened to it and were like, oh my God, that's actually amazing. And I feel like working with the time and manipulating the time more is actually
really slept on.
Yeah.
I would totally agree. I've had bands where we have actually, discussed that. It's like, why do we, we'll change every change. We'll do this to the melody, we'll be glad to do that. But the idea of steady time is the one thing that we refuse to give up on. And like the beauty of, for instance, Art Tatum,
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you listen to him, is it's not like he can't play in time. It's this. There are times where he wants to speed it up, times where he
Mm-hmm.
wants to slow it down. He wants to go back and forth from rubato. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Change the meter, and maybe he does it with conjunction of, modulating to a new key, or he playing into an interlude. I mean, this holistic look at this is just one of the elements I'm using, rather than, okay, I've got this bedrock time, and then all the stuff I put on top of it is where the music is.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the more people you get together, the more you need to have steady time, or
Right.
some idea of steady time.
Mm-hmm.
Although if you listen to, like, the Chicago Art Ensemble, man, those guys moved around, or Mingus's band, mostly because Mingus was such a strong personality,
Mm-hmm.
he could actually take all those 8 or 9 guys and move them around tempo wise.
Right.
And they were like riding a big train.
Yeah.
So I would totally agree with you that that is a under discovered
Mm-hmm.
part of the jazz experience of music. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say two things, but yeah, I completely agree with that. Actually, another guitar player that I'm sure you both like, John Schofield, was doing a master class one time, and he was talking about time, and he's got a pretty interesting take on it. But one way,
I remember, what's funny, Bruce? Shouts out to Jesse Sullivan. I remember Pat Martino giving a master class,
Oh God.
and then Jesse was like, Mr. Martino, like, how can we improve time? Like, how can I improve my time? And Pat was like, well, there is no time.
oh,
And I busted out laughing in like a quiet auditorium because I know that's not what Jesse wanted to hear.
Right, of course. Yeah.
And also, like, Pat at that level was like, he was, he had transcended already. Like, literally, his brain probably was like transcended because he had undergone such an incredible event that he wasn't gonna think in these like really semantic ways of thinking, like time is this, time is that. He's like, there is no time. But if you listen to his albums, for example, that what is that really seminal recording he did with Francesco,
Yeah.
where like it was
it's
wild,
like a live album.
yeah, I don't know if it's live, but fuck, I don't remember the tune, but you can just hear them manipulating the time together.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? And it's a wild thing. So like if you just listen to that, you can understand where Pat is coming from.
Well, Pat's always been. I mean, I've known Pat for over 40 years, uh,
Hmm.
and he's always been a deep thinker and frankly, kind of a crackpot.
Yeah.
And I guess the particular masterclass you're talking about happened after his brain stuff, and he come back, or was it before he had his?
I think it was. I mean,
Because that was fairly. I think it was before. I mean, that was right.
he
That
had
was
another one because this would have been in my undergrad.
okay. I Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not
Mm.
so sure if what you experienced was right when he was going into it or coming out of it. You know what I mean? That's all.
Okay.
And I mean, he was doing, like, I remember once really this is a foot and mouth disease for me. Okay. And I thought it was a USC, but it might have been somewhere else. Might have been Stanford or something. He was giving a workshop, and he was doing that thing where he was assigning notes to word letters. Do you remember that at all? Like, he would say the word beautiful, but he had a way, like, okay, there's 7 notes in the scale, so the alphabet would, if you got to 7, like A B C D E F G, there's just A B C D E F G, H, there's your 7. Then you start again. I becomes 1, and then so every
Okay.
letter gets a number assigned to it. Then that would be a musical interval. Then he would play the word.
Whoa.
So he'd play the word beautiful, and it
Mhm.
would be like
Oh wow.
a B and a E and an A, obviously, and then
Mhm.
a U was a something else and a T,
Mhm.
but whatever. And the F came around, and of course
That's
it
kind of cool.
sounded, and he'd play it beautifully.
Uh huh.
And then he'd go bad, and then he'd play BAD, but really like in a raunchy kind of
Uh
fucked
huh.
up way, and so like he's fucking Pat Martino. He can take any notes he wants and make anything out of it. It was just,
Yeah.
I mean, it was getting a little frustrating because it was kind of like a stupid parlor trick, if you ask
Right.
me.
Well, yeah.
And and I think he did ugly, and he even got a good face going, and he did that, and it's like I kind of in a moment where I thought he was going to be playing, but he stopped short, and I was talking to the person next to me, and I said, I wonder what bullshit sounds like,
Oh.
and he heard me.
Oh,
Oh
that's
no.
awesome. That is funny.
See, that's the problem I had at USC, dude. Like, I couldn't keep my mouth shut, dude.
I know, and there's nothing wrong with that, and you pay for it, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not just a musician, I'm a human being and I'm a comedian. So,
Yeah.
everything I say, I think it's funny when I say it.
Right.
It's nice if other people think it is too.
Yeah.
I'm never saying shit to be malicious.
Yeah.
I'm always saying stuff because it sounds funny in here and then it comes out here.
Yeah.
Right.
And it usually sounds funny to me. You know what I mean? But that's about as far as I can go. The rest is up to kind of the other people around.
What are you looking forward to? Like, are you looking forward to getting back on tour? Are you looking for, or maybe you think, you know what, this is kind of cool. Like, maybe it doesn't have to be back on touring. Maybe I can do this, whatever. What are you looking forward to?
I'm glad you brought that up. And because this is another thing I've been spending a lot of time on. What am I personally looking forward to? I'm not really sure. I really miss hanging with people and playing with people, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
really enjoying play by myself. So maybe a lot of my future touring will be by myself with the red guitar and that kind of approach to things.
Mm-hmm.
I also see myself as a comedian. I also see myself as a little bit of a social commentarian
Okay.
and an educator. So maybe kind of I'm headed more into Mark Twain, Will Rogers. I don't know if you know who those people are, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's kind of a place I want to go. I'm thinking about it, but on a bigger scale, and I'd like to say to you guys, this event is huge.
Mm-hmm.
This pandemic is huge. I mean, it's going to end up being as big as the Depression, as big as way bigger than 9/11 even, which was huge. And the world, we're not going back to March of 2000. We're
Mm-hmm.
going into something new.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what will it be? That this is where, again, back to the first thing we talked about, artists.
Mm-hmm.
Artists' job are to articulate where we are and then to shine the light on the way to go.
Exactly.
And yes, I think touring as we know it, it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of unsustainable the way it was before
Mm-hmm.
we shut down. I was on too many airplanes, making too little money,
Mm-hmm.
wasting too many resources.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there was a lot of dead wood in a lot of scenes.
Mm-hmm.
People who were not really helping it grow; they were just sort of sucking on it, and just taking up place.
Mm-hmm.
I think, unfortunately, one of the biggest, unfortunately, one of the biggest things about this time is this is like a forest fire, and it's clearing out a lot of dead wood.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to talk about music first. I'm going to talk about restaurants.
Okay.
There's a lot of guys who have restaurants who they've had it for 60 years, and they built it and it's a beautiful, great restaurant. It was everybody's favorite, you know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
it's, the guy's got his money and he's 65 years old or 70 or 80 years old. And now it's been shut down and he's got to reopen to a whole new world and a whole new economy and a whole new way of doing business. Those guys are probably not coming back.
Right.
They're probably going to go, and that's going to leave a lot of sunlight and photosynthesis for young people to start new things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bad because we lose institutional knowledge and tradition. There's a good because it's going to make it especially on an Earth that's so overpopulated. It's going to make more opportunity for younger people who have been kind of crowded out because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think looking at music, I think the same thing is happening. I think particularly guys my age and older, a lot of them are just gone now. The ones who chose not to get involved with the internet
Mm-hmm.
and who aren't playing. Hey man, if you're my age or worse, if you're the guys I played with and grew up with, my mentors, they're in their mid 70s or they're 80 now. If you lay off for a year at that age, it's pretty much a done deal. That's you're not going to like jump on a bicycle and make the Tour de France. You know what I mean? In my age, even my age, I feel that I'm very grateful that I've continued to play so much. You know, I feel like I haven't lost any stamina or focus. You know what I mean? And I could probably hang in the new world, however it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're going to lose a lot of really great institutional knowledge and ancestral ties through this event.
Yeah.
But I think also there's a good side, which is it's going to a lot of older guys have been just holding down gigs that young guys need to play. You know, because they need to get the experience and take the music to the new places it needs to go, and relate to the new younger people who are listening to it. So, I mean, on the one hand, I'm being pessimistic, but I'm optimistic too. I'm very excited to see where it's going to go. I do believe that the online universe is going to be a huge component of everything going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I think music school, you know, is going to change. I think performing and touring is going. I don't see these new things that we're doing, whether it's streaming master classes or streaming concerts. I don't see them going away anytime soon.
Even if things open up, I think that what another thing people are realizing is that like there's something business wise alluring about just setting up your thing at your studio, not having to pay any gas, not having to pay anybody a road crew, not having to pay for a bus, none of that shit.
Right. Well, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? And giving people a better deal. Of course, they're getting a worse experience.
Yeah,
you know? But you're getting what you paid for, Armin. You know, I mean, think about it that way. You know, where I live, in order to get to hear, you know, the world's best musicians, where I'm actually doing a show for them. It's the Kumba Jazz Center. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's in Santa Cruz. It's about on a good day an hour drive from me. That, you know, that's the closest place for me to hear great music. You know what I mean? Well, shit, you know, I mean, driving 2 hours, you know, okay, I can do it every once in a while, but I can't do it every night. And, you know, and I really do want to interact with my community and be inspired and hear great stuff every night. So, I mean, it's like I say, I think when we get back to school, at least I'm hoping that the good parts of the online stay and that we just go back to doing the parts that cannot be done online in person. Like an orchestra rehearsal ain't never going to happen online.
No.
A ensemble rehearsal never going to happen online. Even if there was no buffering, even if the latency was not a problem, I still say that not live is not working.
Yeah, you got to be in the energy field.
In the energy field, being able to, there's so many subtle cues that are happening, and there's so many distractions too that are happening that you need to learn to pass through to be a great musician. So I don't see that happening. But on the other hand, you know, private lessons or a mixture of some of them in person and some of them online, that makes sense. Or a music theory class or a lecture class. I don't see anything wrong with those components being online and having people spending less time getting places and more time doing whatever it is that class is asking them to do. So, and I think that's going to be the big change as we move through this. Um, and also, you know, we miss each other. You know what I mean? There's going to be a
Hmm.
great grand reunion period. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? When we all can finally like really honestly hang without worrying about getting each other sick any more than like the regular cold or the flu.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I how that changes us all. I'm sure a lot of us have. I'm sure your home scene is probably a lot hipper than it was
My
because you're in it. You're
my home
you're in
scene.
it. You're
Yeah.
in it a lot more, right?
Right.
A lot of us have probably learned to cook better and eat better because
Hmm.
of this. Obviously, the Earth has gotten a chance to take a breath. We're driving. I don't know about you, but I'm driving about 1/100th of the miles I used to drive.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm not even getting. I haven't gotten on an airplane in over a year now. No, in just
Yeah.
about a year now. So
Hmm.
I mean, that's a lot of Earth degradation, right? That I have not contributed to.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I mean, we need to. I would love to be the guy that kind of was the Bob Dylan who helped us, form a way into the future, a way of being, a movement of
Hmm.
humanity to really define what the next thing needs to be coming out of this. Of course, they don't let old guys do things like that. Young guys have to do that. But also, my biggest concern out of it all is throughout the years of my life and even before, musicians were the ones who were the pioneers. They were the explorers, the discoverers. You know what I mean? Woody Guthrie. Think of that. Think of Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen and Charlie Parker
Hmm.
and John Coltrane. These were people who not just musically changed trends, but actually changed social trends.
Hmm.
And I'm a little concerned that due to the ubiquitous nature of music and what I trace back to the invention of the Walkman, um, that the music has lost its power to be as big a player in the world of social change.
Yeah.
Wow.
I also think it's been hijacked to such a obscene level where artists are less concerned about being popular for this sound, this thing they're trying to create. Like take any old band for example, like Queen. Okay, when Queen started off, I highly doubt Freddie was concerned about sounding like anybody else. I know he took ideas from other people. I know he had a lot of influences, but he wrote things that are undeniably Queen. Undeniably Queen. But now you look at the music and it's just like, no, we're just making pill popping songs for this group of people. We're
Mm.
just gonna make disco pop songs for this group of people. And everything has become like factory made, kind of
Yeah.
like bullshit. There's no creativity in a lot of what's going on. And it's like artists like Dua Lipa, they're a saving grace because they're actually doing that shit. And at the same time, not surprisingly, they're not getting at the same level as somebody like whatever Post Malone. But that's just the
Or
life.
Queen was when Queen was doing what they were doing. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Well,
So
that's the
yeah.
point, and I trace it back in a lot of ways to the Walkman, which was the first truly portable personal stereo.
Right.
We had those little Super Scope and Marantz things that we carried around that had bullshit car speakers in them and stuff.
Hmm.
But like when Sony hit the world with the Walkman, where everybody gets to have their own personal playlist and no
Hmm.
one else hears it, and that the world was not like that before that, Armin. The
Right.
world, we all listened to music together and we
Hmm.
all
Yeah.
shared it together and we all talked about it and we liked one thing and didn't like
Hmm.
another, and what I mean, and we identified ourselves by what music we liked in many ways. And
Hmm.
now it's like you go to the Safeway and it's like, the Vons or whatever you have down there, and
Hmm.
Piggly Wiggly, and you got Coltrane on you
Mm-hmm.
know, and then you got Barry Manilow, and then you've got,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whatever. I mean, it's just, and people don't even notice it. And so
Right.
that's my worry, that music has lost a little bit of its power to create social change. But I don't think it's done. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan, Woody Guthrie can come along, Coltrane,
Mm-hmm.
and shine the light and make it happen. I'm hoping for
Mm-hmm.
that.
That's what we're trying to do.
I'd really hate to see the world go the way that was no longer one of our things anymore. You know.
I think that's actually a pretty good bow tie on our conversation.
Yeah, I think we did really well here, and
Yeah.
I got to get going here because I have ants and I have to let them out.
You have ants.
Yeah, ants in the house, and I got to let them out. Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Well, Bruce, thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Bruce. Appreciate you.
I had been planning a visit to LA, and then the thing happened, and so when I'm down there and I'm going around Cali, we should get together.
Yes, man, and you're going to need to like reacquaint yourself with LA and get over your thing because,
Yeah.
man, the world is a beautiful place just because you're where it is. You know what I mean?
Right. I
Yeah.
like that. Thank you,
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bruce.
everybody. Thank you, Bruce. This has
All
been
right, great to see
episode
you again.
24. Great to see you.
I'm really proud of everything you've achieved, man.
Thank you
Keep
so
going.
much, man. Thank you.
All right.
All right. See you, Bruce.
See you. Thank
so
you.
much.
Later.
Meet you.